Hello and welcome to a Point Convert 3D video tutorial. Today we'll be taking a 2D image sequence and converting it into a 3D world. While still maintaining the integrity of the original 2D source. So to get started, we're going to open a new session of Blender. You'll need the Point Convert 3D add-on installed. This add-on will appear in the left-hand menu in the 3D view. So if you go down to the Point Convert tab, you'll see we have a full suite of conversion tools. Today I'm just going to do an overview of all of the tools in one tutorial, and in future tutorials I'll go more in depth into each section. So first things first, I'm going to import my image sequence. So select my image sequence, or one of the images from the image sequence, and I'm going to make sure the image sequence checkbox is checked, and then I'm going to import. So as you can see, we have a little bit of a refresh issue, but once we select into the material and then play it, as you can see, our image sequence imported onto an image plane that is also constrained to the camera, so that no matter where you move it in Z, if you look through the camera, the image sequence maintains its integrity. So I'm going to stop this playback, and then I'm going to go back to the first frame, and I'm going to start the conversion process. So what we'll need to do is make a mesh on top of this image plane, and every vertice that we create, we will then convert into control points that will be individually constrained to the camera. So I'm going to start that by going into edit mode, and then looking through the camera and using the knife tool to create a mesh around this cube. So I want to be sure to place these vertices in the appropriate places, so that when we do convert and I start building it out in Z space, I'll have enough vertices to build the cube. Not have to be too precise, because we will be going into the movie clip editor to track these points in their XY space. So now that I got the points made, I'm going to switch over to face mode, and I'm going to select the faces around the cube, and I'm going to delete these. So by doing this, I eliminate any extra vertices that could bog down my mesh and just create extra work. So now that I have that created, I'm going to go back into object mode, and then with the mesh selected, I'm going to make sure that auto mask beta is checked, and then I'm going to hit convert. So as you can see, now we've converted each vertice into controllable points, and each of these points has an X, Y, and Z. The Z correlates to its space relative to the camera, and the XY is the coordinates on the image plane. So as you can see, I extruded these points, but if I look through the camera, I still maintain the integrity of the original source image. So I'm going to put those back. Then I'm going to make sure I can select my mesh. Alright. So now that I have this single image points keyed, I'm going to go into the movie clip editor. And because we had the auto mask selected, now we can select it imports our video clip. So as you can see, that goes in. And it also, if I go back to the first frame, and then I go into mask mode and select the mask, it has also imported our mesh. Well, it's made a mask based on the points of the mesh we created. So every point on the mask correlates to a vertice on the mesh that we converted. So I'm going to select all of these, and then I'm going to insert a key on the first frame. And then I'm going to tab over to tracking, and I'm going to select the fast motion preset and just location. And then I'm going to go to the last frame and place a couple of tracks on here, and then track backwards. So I'm going to continue to do this for all of the main tracking points on the cube. So now that I got my tracks, I'm going to go back over to mask mode, and I'm going to parent all of my points to their corresponding tracks using Control P. So I'll play that back. As you can see, those four main points track real well, and I just need to do some hand animation for these extra points. So I'm going to go to the last frame, select all these extra points, hit hotkey G to grab, and I'm going to just do a little modification, and then I'm going to hit hotkey I to insert a key there. Then I'll go to the halfway point, and I'll select these points again, hit G, move it around, then I hit hotkey I, go to the halfway point, select my points, hotkey G, hotkey I, go to frame 15, hotkey G, hotkey I to insert a key, and now play it back. There's a little jump around here, but this is good enough for demo purposes. So now that I've tracked all my points through the duration of the image sequence, I want to correlate these points back to the mesh I created in 3D view. So I'm going to go back to 3D view. go back to the first frame so we can see it. And then come down here to our auto link section of point convert. And I'm going to make sure the mesh is selected and then select auto link. So I'll turn on the toggle auto refresh button and then play this through. And as you can see, all of our XY coordinates have been keyed and are tracked through the duration of the animation. So now all I have to do is build this out in 3D space and I will be good to go. So there's a couple ways to do this. I can take each individual point. Well, I'm going to make sure that like me. So I can extrude individual points and build the object out, or I can use the auto depth feature. I'm going to use the auto depth feature. So I'm going to close out this graph editor and then select my mesh. So the way the auto depth feature works is you take a reference model and you correlate the points from the model to the mesh, and then we have an algorithm that automatically calculates the depth of your object based off that. So to do this, I'm going to create a duplicate. Well, I'm going to duplicate this window, and then I'm going to create a new scene. So within the scene, I'm going to add a cube mesh, and then I'm going to select wireframe so I can see it. So now with this mesh created, I'm going to go into the point convert plugin, and then I'm going to go down to the auto depth area, and I'm going to hit mark ref. So what this has done is taken every vertice and assigned it a name and a number. So now I just need to go back over to, so I'm going to make this smaller. Make it so I can see it. Then I'll take this. I'm going to hit 0. And then I'm going to take each point and attach the reference link to it. So I'll copy this, and then I'll paste this in here and hit enter. And then I'll go around to all of the corresponding points and make sure their reference links are entered. I'm just going to make sure that the calculation point is on all of them. For a high resolution model, you probably wouldn't calculate each point, but since we have a minimal number of vertices on this demo, we're going to calculate each point. As as you can see, I'm just going around and correlating the same points from my model over to my mesh. So I'm just going to go through and double check and make sure that all of my points have reference links. Alright, looking good. Now I'm going to enlarge this window again. Go back to 3D view. Select my mesh. And then I'm going to go make some quick adjustments to the auto depth calculation. So I'm just going to drop this down from 10 to 5, which will make the depth build more accurate. And then I'm going to drop these down to 75%. The depth factor and the scale factor. And then I'm going to hit auto depth. I'm going to make sure the auto scale checkbox is checked because we will be using that feature also. So since I calculated every point and I dropped the depth step to 5, it takes a little longer to do the calculation. But looks like nothing happened, but it actually built out the cube. So now I'm going to hit toggle auto refresh. I'm going to go to the last frame. And then I'm going to hit auto depth again. And this is where the auto scale feature will come into play. So now, as you can see, with the auto scale checkbox checked, point convert takes the scale difference between your two keys and moves your object in the corresponding Z space based on the scale difference. So if I play this back, as you can see, we've completed our conversion using all of the features in Point Convert 3D. Now the user could create a stereoscopic camera rig and render this out in stereoscopic 3D, or they could create another camera and create a 2.5D technique for motion graphics. Thank you for your time, and we should have more tutorial videos out shortly. Thank you.